All right, um, we are back again. At least we have some challenges with the network, so the video has to truncate. But at least we are back, and we thank everyone. Those who were with us in the first broadcast. Um, I trust we are going to continue from where we ended in the previous recording. So this is what you were saying. We are looking at what actually constitutes let them grow together. As far as the parable of the wheat and the tares is concerned, as far as Matthew chapter 13, verse 29 is concerned, this is the Lord who had planted his field of the good seed, but when he fell asleep, the enemy came and he sown his tares among them. And when they sprouted up and they sprouted out, when the wheat sprouted out, the tares also sprouted out as well. And so the Lord said that, well, these are all going to grow together till they are matured. Okay, that will be the time of the harvest. And we have determined who this enemy was, in the at this stage, that Paul had cried that many had become the enemy of the cross, because the message of the cross was the gospel, because the gospel is primarily about death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. First Corinthians chapter 15. And so the apostles were charged to uh, go to the worldwide in the first century to proclaim this message, to the perishing. And upon their belief, they should be baptized and be added to the body of Christ for salvation, because of the impending judgment that was going to come upon them. But there were people who sought to restrain them from accomplishing this goal, and they were the one who beat them up, killed many of them, and so they were the enemies. They were the one restraining the progress of the spreading or the promulgation of the gospel in the first century, in fulfillment of Matthew chapter 28, verse 18 to 20. And in First Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13 to 16, we know who these people were. Okay, Paul said that they will have to fill up the measure of their guilt, or their father's guilt, in First Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13 through to 16. And in Matthew chapter 23, verse 31 to 36, we know those who were to fill up the measure of their father's guilt. They were the unbelieving Jews. They were the one who waged war against the church in the first century. They were the one who, made every effort to restrain the apostles from, accomplishing their goal of taking the gospel to the then known world for salvation. Yes, bro. Yeah, it's very, very, very long time. I'm doing good. Even the last time, I was wondering, because I know you usually join me, during this broadcast. Anyway, as you have been doing, just share the message on various platforms. Maybe about 10 would be okay, so that others will take the opportunity to join me in this live Facebook broadcast. Anyway, aha. Uh, so that is that. All right, so these were the ones. So they were the enemies. They were the unbelieving Jews. They were the enemies, and they were the one who sown their seed among the lost field, or the lost seeds on his field. Now, if you remember in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, John said that there are some who claim to be Jews, but they are liars, but of the synagogue of Satan. And also in Second Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13 through to 14, says that the Satan had this guy, or the enemy had disguised himself as angel of light, and his followers also being false apostles. Okay, so they were the people. These were the enemies. They are the people who were all over the place in the first century. And also the Bible teachings is that during the first century, it was very, very hard to distinguish the true Christian from the sham, or the unbelievers, so to speak. It was very, very difficult to do that, because they were almost the same. See, just as it is today, it is very, very hard for us to distinguish true Christians from the false or the sham ones, because we all use the Bible. We proclaim the name of Jesus in our various congregations or churches, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we can only determine who these true Christians are upon we die in our time. Okay, but in the first century, the separation occurred at the time of the harvest. So or at the time of the end. So we are going to determine when was the time of the harvest and when was the time of the end. That was the time when the angels were permitted to now come and separate, okay, the wheat from the tares and put the tares, bind them up and put them in the fire, whilst the wheat were to gather in the Lord's barn. So this is what was happening. But after the angels have detected that indeed, after they have detected that indeed they uh, there are some tares among the lost seed, they inquired from him whether they should come to to gather them, to to separate them. So the Lord said that no, it is very very difficult for you to do this at this time, because whilst whilst gathering the tares, you may as well uproot the wheat. And it's very very true. You see, this speaks of the kingdom, the time of the inception of the kingdom on the day of Pentecost in 70 AD 30. It was the church, broke forth, into the world as an independent seed, okay, and grew till the time of, grew till maturity when it was presented to his husband, that is Christ, for the wedding. And it was very, very difficult at that infantile stage to distinguish, the church, the true from the false believers. Okay, so when you read Mark chapter 4, verse 25 to 26, it's going to tell you how the church grew as was sown, sprouted and grew as an independent church until, or body, until, maturity. So this was what was happening. Now, we know the angels inquired from the Lord, when is he going to, permit them to do the separation? But the Lord said they should wait. So it means that the day and the hour of the separation or the judgment was one which was upheld in the Lord's own authority. Okay. So this is also Matthew chapter 24, verse 36. The angels knew that one day they are going to be given they are going to be issued the permit to come and separate the wheat from the tares. However, they did not know the day and hour. Okay, but it doesn't mean that they will not know. That is just by the way. Okay, so this is how we have to understand some of these things. But when we move on, Jesus went ahead to explain to the apostles, after they have inquired from him the explanation of this parable. And so in verse 36, this is what the Lord said. But let him add this: when was the angels going to come to separate the wheat from the tares? When are they going to come? Is it that it was something that was never going to come in their days, or at least in the first century? No, that is not the meaning. Because when you just proceed to chapter 16 of Matthew, and starting at verse 25, it says that, for the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, then he will reward each one according to his work. Okay, so the enemies are going to be judged into eternal condemnation, okay, while the saints are going to be gathered into the lost kingdom. Okay, and we shall look at that, when we get to verse 36 onwards in Matthew chapter 23. But I am only trying to give you the time frame within which the angels were going to be given the permit to come, to carry out this judgment. Now listen, in verse 28 of Matthew chapter 16, it says that, assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now remember, um, those to whom Jesus told these parables to, where the apostles were there. And here he speaks of the time of his parousia, or the time of the return. Okay, when he told them that there are some standing here, so the same apostles who were standing there were also the same apostles who are standing here, who are those of which people are the ones. Some of excuse me, let me put it this way. Some of these apostles will be available or alive until the Lord returns a second time in his kingdom. In John chapter 21, verse 20 to 25, Jesus told or asked Peter that, if I will that John the Revelator remain till I come, what is that to you? So at least he gave a hint that some of them, at least John, will be alive to see him come. That is beyond his return. And according to history, John lived, beyond 70 AD. Anyway, so at least we have this text to give us clue, as to when the Lord was going to come with his angels to do the gathering, okay, into his kingdom, and also some to everlasting, burning, okay, or everlasting destruction. So it occurs in the first century, by the way, so because it says that there are some standing here which shall not taste death till they see me come in my kingdom. That thou coming is attended by the angels who are going to repay each one according to his work. That is the time of resurrection. That is the time of judgment, and it will be the time of the separation of the tares from the wheat, the time of the separation of the goats from the sheep, as far as Matthew chapter 25, verse 31, 32, following is concerned. All occurred in the first century when the Lord comes to judge, Israel. Now, to add to this, in Matthew chapter number 24, we also see the Lord coming with his angels with a trumpet sound, and the regathering, okay, by the angels. But it says that in verse 34, they are assuredly I say to you, those generation will by no means pass away till all these things, take place. So at least we know when the Lord comes with the angels, with the trumpet sound to do the gathering, according to Matthew chapter 24, occurs in Jesus' contemporary generation in the first century. Now, let's move on back to Matthew chapter 13. We are looking at let them grow together, because this is go to get text. Whenever you try to correct the errors of many religious bodies today, they are going to quickly appeal to this text to tell you that no, wait, you are not. Who are you to judge? Forgetting that in John chapter number 7, verse 24, Christians are to judge, but they should judge accurately. Okay, pointing to to your brother the errors of his way doesn't amount to judgment. It's a way of correction. Perhaps the Bible is used for correction because errors abound. But people who appeal to this text to demonstrate to you that no, you are not the one to tell me what is good or what is bad, but allow them all to go together, thinking that because both the corrector, so to speak, and the one in error think that this is yet to us future return of the Lord, future judgment, and so they appeal to this text, to justify why they should be given that freedom to do whatever they are doing or what they want. But that is not the case. We have the Bible as our guide. At least we are not to think beyond it, and so on and so forth. So the Bible becomes our law book, okay, with legal jurisdictional, limitation. We don't have to go beyond it, but people today have choose to overlook, and set up their own rules and so on and so forth to govern their church. So it is just difficult sometimes for us to distinguish between true Christians and the false ones, okay, because all of them are using the Bible, proclaiming the names of the Lord in their congregations, and quoting some portions of the Bible to justify what they do today without understanding the eschatological implication of sometimes the text that they quote in justification of what they do today. The time frame, the audience relevant are neglected when it comes to the study of the Bible, among some of these religious bodies. Anyway, so in Matthew chapter number 23, Matthew chapter number 13, now Jesus began explaining this parable to them. And so at verse 36, this is what the Lord said. He said that now he who sows the seed is the Son of Man. What did we read in Matthew chapter 16, verse 27? The Lord, the Son of Man, will come with the angels. Matthew chapter 24, the Son of Man will come with the glory of the Father with the angels. So this is the same Jesus we are talking about. His second coming is what we have in mind, as far as this parable of Matthew 13 is concerned. Now, the field is the world. Now, that is the Jewish world, the world which the okumeni, this is not cosmos. This is how sometimes you have to distinguish, among that term. It's the word okumeni, not the word cosmos, to speak of universal, or the universe. But this one is the inhabitable earth, the land which existed in the first century. That is what it talks about. So it's the word, and the good seed are the sons of the kingdom. Now, who are the sons of the kingdom? They were those who have believed, or who believed the gospel and were baptized and were made to enter into the kingdom of God. They were the sons of resurrection, sons of God, or sons of Christ in the kingdom. So these are the ones. Now remember, at that time of the judgment, there are those who are going, the tares are going to be burned up. However, the wheat are going to be gathered into the Lord's band, and that is the kingdom. Okay. And so when you proceed, it says that, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. So they are the sons of the wicked one. Who were the wicked one? They were those who were persecuting the church in the first century, killing them, chasing them from one city to another, and so on and so forth. Those who rejected the Messiah, who orchestrated his crucifixion, and the one who did those who did not believe the gospel, who were the enemies of the gospel, they were the wicked one. Now, verse 39 said that the enemy who sold them is the devil. Now, in John chapter number 8, verse 44, Jesus called the Jews of his days as belonging to their father, the Satan, who is also called the devil, according to Revelation chapter 12, verse 17 following. So we are talking about individual Jews or the Jewish, as a people in the first century. Remember, they were the one who were persecuting against the church, or who militated and attempt to restrain the church in the first century, did not give them freedom, killed many of them. They were the one. Remember, on Paul's journey to Syria, he has gone for authority from the he has gone for authority from this, the high priest, the chief priest, the those authorities or powers, the principalities in the first century. They were the one who were fighting against the church. Remember when the Lord appeared, revealed himself to Paul on his road to Damascus, he said that, Saul, Saul, why do you hate me? Why do you persecute me? You understand? So it means that that battle was between heaven and earth. Okay, these people were fighting Christ and so on and so forth. So they were the wicked one and they were the enemies of the first century. But he said that the harvest is the end of the age. So that time of the harvest is the end of eon. Eon is the end of the eon, the age. Not the end of the world, but it's the end of the age. That age there is the Jewish age. Now you can read Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, when it says that give out the signs of your coming and the end, or the sign, what will be the end, the sign of your coming and the consummation of this age. So that age was the Jewish age. In Matthew chapter number 28, verse 20, the Lord said that I am with you till the end of this age, because the Lord appeared at the end of the age a second time for judgment, according to Hebrew chapter 9, verse 26. Okay, 24, 25, 26. So we speak. So the age here is not the age in which we live in now, but it is the age, or what we call the Mosaic age, or the Old Covenant age. That is the age in question here. Okay, because it was that age which has end time, which has last days, according to Genesis chapter 49, verse 1, First John chapter 2, verse 18 following. But the age or the world in which we live in now is the age without end, or world without end, according to Ephesians chapter 3, verse 21, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 7, Luke chapter 21, verse 32, 33, Genesis chapter 8, verse 20, 21, and Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 4. All of them, affirm the fact that the world in which we live in now has no end. This is the messianic world, and in the world the Lord reigns, in the heart of believers. The kingdom is in us, the Lord is in us, and He reigns from our heart, and in that world which has no end. So the age here, the end of the age here, was the end of the Jewish age. So that age is also the age of Matthew chapter 24, verse 3. And we know that that age was consummated in that 70 AD, when the city and the temple were destroyed by the Roman army led by Titus. So that was the time when the Lord comes with the angels a second time to destroy them, to take vengeance against the enemies, against the wicked one. He said that vengeance is mine to recompense. Okay, in their due time, their feet are going to slip, and I will, when I wake my greeting, so I am going to destroy them, so on and so forth. Deuteronomy 32, verse 34, 35, and 41. It is all there in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament. So that is the age when the Lord comes. So let them grow together till the harvest. The harvest is the end of the age. Okay, is the end of the age, which is the end of what? Old Covenant age. So you don't appeal to this text today to to tell me that let us grow together. That is long. That is fulfilled and gone. It is a fulfilled text. It's not something that we are looking at it today nor tomorrow. Okay, so understand that, because in Matthew chapter 24, which was the end of the age, we see the Lord coming a second time, attended by the angels. Okay, and doing the regathering, as well as Matthew chapter number 16, verse 27, 28, and also First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 down to 17. We see the Lord coming with His angels with the trumpet sound. It is the same one coming of the Lord, the same angels, the same trumpet, and the same resurrection of the harvest. All occurred at the time of the end. That is the end of the Jewish world, because Jewish world, or the Jewish age. Because remember, Paul said that he is saying nothing except that which Moses and the prophet said will come in Acts chapter 26, verse 20-22. So it means that Paul's coming of the Lord and the sounding of the trumpet were the ones which were foretold by the prophet. And so if you want to know when the last trumpet will be blown, go to Isaiah chapter 25, Isaiah chapter 27, verse 9 to 13. You are going to there you will see that the sounding of the last trumpet is in association with the fall of Jerusalem and the temple. It is all there in the first century. So just go there, read the background text, and that will enable you to understand the New Testament. Anyway, so that is the time. I just have to wrap up because my light is just not it's just not enough to illuminate the Bible. Anyway, so it says that the harvest is the end of the age, that is the age of Moses, which I just explained, and the reapers are the angels. So it is all over the place. So this is not something that is going to come in our time or yet something yet to us in the future. It is something that is long gone. It is fulfilled. It is 780 AD text. I know and I believe that there's one, as far as the second coming of Christ is concerned, there's one throughout the New Testament. I don't know and I don't believe in duplicity or multiplicity of the returns of the Lord. Because if that's the case, then it means that in that book of Matthew alone, we are going to have about 4 different comings of the Lord. Matthew 16, Matthew 13, Matthew 24, Matthew 26, Matthew 25, then we are going to have multiples of them. But there's one second coming of Christ, and that is one which occurred in 70 AD. Anyway, so no, you can read and said, so therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it is at the end of this age. That is the age in which they lived in which Christ lived in. That is the Mosaic age, not Christian age. Christ did not live under the Christian age. Okay, he died and rose under the old covenant. So the age that he talks about is the old covenant age, which was destroyed in 70 AD, and that consummated, this coming of the Lord, the tares burnt, and so on and so forth. That is it. Now you can go up and read more. Now, so you can go ahead and read many more. Now, in verse so they said that the Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and those who practice lawlessness. Now, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the coming of the lawless one, who was a Jewish figure, because he said he sits in the Jerusalem temple, he sits in the most holy place. Okay, that was the Zealot movement, the Zealot leader who took over the temple, in the first half of the war between the Jews and the Romans. Okay, they were the one. Now, so they said that, and now this when this I said that, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Now there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And these people think that this is about hell. No, this is judgment upon Israel in 70 AD. Okay, this is now the if you read this casting into the outer darkness for the wailing and gnashing of teeth, it is also Matthew chapter 8, verse 11 and verse 12, when Abraham and Isaac will be raised to sit in the kingdom, will be the time when the sons of the kingdom, that is Israel, will be cast out into outer darkness, where they will be weeping and gnashing teeth. It is also Luke chapter number 13, verse 26 to 29. The same element of Matthew chapter 8 is also there. And so this is also, these two texts is also Matthew chapter number 13, okay, when it says that they will be cast out and there they will be wailing and they will be gnashing teeth. So it means that this judgment that we are talking about is the covenantal judgment, because I said it is, old covenant, or Israel's judgment is this covenantal judgment, and it is, just like, these two texts that I have stated, Luke 13 and Matthew 8, is just like that the parable of the tares and the wheat, where the two go together until the time of the end. That the time of the end is the time of old covenant Israel, or the time of the old covenant world. Okay, that age, that is the end of the old covenant age. Okay, of Moses. Okay, so where the national Israel is separated from the true seed of Abraham, where they were cast out, or they were cast out or cut off. Now, when you read Act chapter number 3, verse 22 and 23, I believe it also gives some shred of idea as to what this judgment is all about, because it is all spoken in that context. Now, so in verse Act chapter number 3, verse 22 and verse 23, what we have here quickly. So it says that for Moses truly said to their fathers, the Lord, so the who were the father to Israel belong to the fathers. Romans chapter number 9, verse 1 to 8, 1 to 5. So we are talking about things pertaining to old covenant Israel, unrelated to Christian or unrelated to the Gentiles, at least from this perspective. Okay. So for those, it said that for Moses truly said to the father, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brethren. Him you shall hear in all things, whatever he says to you. Now, this is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15 following. So you see where this whole thing is coming from. It is old covenant, issue. It is, Israel's issue, and has nothing to do with Christians. Now, or the Gentiles or the world in 21st century. And it shall be that everyone who shall not hear the prophet shall be utterly destroyed from among the people. So that is the destruction which befell Israel in 70 AD. Those who disobey the voice of the prophet, through the apostolic teachings, according to Acts chapter 2, verse 30 following, they were the one who were cut off, or the one who were destroyed in that AD 70 pogrom upon Israel. Okay, that is the judgment that we are talking about here. It occurred at the end of the age. But the few who obeyed the Messiah, the servant, the apostles, they were saved, including the church. They saved themselves from that judgment upon Israel in 70 AD. And so is the case now. So the text, Matthew chapter 8, verse 11 and 12 only speaks of the annihilation. Okay, and that was their dead. Their dead bodies will lie in the street, that great city. I mean, those things which the Bible talks about. Now, it talks about the blazing furnace. Okay, because in the text, in the text, it says that those people will be burned up in the in the fire. Okay, Matthew chapter number 13, right? When you read up to at least in verse it says that in verse 42, it said that, and they will be cast into the furnace of fire. Now, that furnace of fire, that blazing furnace, is an apocalyptic language. This is how we have to understand. It is not something like this, something everlasting fire or something like that. It is an apocalyptic Jewish judgment language, just as we see in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 10 and verse 13, Isaiah chapter number 19, verse 1, Isaiah chapter 34, verse 1, through verse 5. That is judgment against Edom. In this text, the Lord came and destroyed them, but a well-known apocalyptic Jewish judgment language was used. So that flaming fire there, it's an apocalyptic language. It is a metaphor, from that it is a metaphor, okay, for the permanent dissolution of the old covenant world and their loss of inheritance, because the inheritance belonged to them, and so because they disobeyed the gospel, they were destroyed in that judgment. Now, in Matthew chapter number 21, verse 43, there's a statement there that requires attention, and that means we have to read it. And so in verse 43, it says that, therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to the nation bearing the fruit of it. And so we know this is that which occurred in 70 AD. The kingdom belonged to Israel, but because they rejected the Messiah and the gospel, they killed the Messiah, and those who were sent to him. Eventually, the Lord came to burn up their city. Matthew chapter number 28. Okay, so they lost that inheritance. Galatians chapter number 4, verse 3. It's also Galatians 4, verse 30. So in verse 30 also says that, nevertheless, what does the scripture say? Cast out the bondwoman and the son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not inherit with the sons of the free woman. So brethren, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free. So that is Paul's allegory, in this text. When you start at verse 20 to this text, you will see that it was between the old covenant Jews and the new covenant saints, and that is the war. And so those who did not participate okay, of the kingdom. Those who rejected the kingdom were the one who were cast out, who were destroyed, and who lost, that inheritance forever and ever. And that is Israel, experiencing this in their history. We are not talking about this 21st century Israel. We are talking about the Israel of the Bible who went into eternal oblivion, after the judgment. Okay, and that is the one upon them is the fulfillment of Matthew chapter 13. And this is how we have to understand it. So don't be saying that let them go together, let them go together. It is something that has come and gone. But of course, we can learn something from it, in by understanding it, okay, it eschatological meaning and eschatological fulfillment, and applying it by doing secondary application in the world without end. I will have to end here. Come your way some other time, God willing, perhaps tomorrow. So then, bye.